Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming this afternoon. If everybody could please stand, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
Camera shot, flag. It's too late.
Thank you. So I'm going to introduce our presenter, Linda Handley from the Bank of Hemet. And she's going to give you a little preview, and then she's going to go into some of her presentation. And we also have two other guests, along with another one that she's going to be introducing.
Do you want to take that one? That's fine. Good afternoon. I guess I could start with the national anthem. That's what I'm usually doing when I'm up in front of people. But I know many of you. I'm Linda Handley from the Bank of Hemet right over here in Beaumont. And we're seeing such huge fraud right now that we're really proud to be able to present some information to you, because I'm sure you're all getting the same emails and the same texts and all the stuff that I am. We're going to discuss some elder abuse and things that are happening that people are preying on some of our seniors. And I will be introducing someone from our back office, our compliance officer, and we do have a couple of Homeland Security agents that are at the gate, and they will be here soon. So they're going to interrupt my presentation so that they can get started.
Excuse me, Linda, just one moment. Before we get started, I want to make sure that they're going to do their presentation first, and then you can ask your questions afterwards. If you interrupt, it kind of disrupts everything. So please wait, and I will come around to you and give you the microphone so that you can ask your question, because this is being broadcast on Channel 97, and we want to make sure that everybody can hear your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, according to the Bureau of Justice, the statistics are showing that fraud is occurring with the misuse of credit cards, bank accounts, newly opened accounts, and the misuse of personal identification and mixtures of all of the above. So a lot can happen. Another study measured financial exploitation of elders and consumers, found over 13% of elders were victims of financial fraud. The New York State Elder Abuse Study of 2011 found that only 1 in 44 cases of financial abuse is reported by seniors. So people are being abused but not reporting it. As you can see, the population of older adults has been steadily increasing and will continue as the baby boomer, that's my generation, ages. That means we're all getting older. But you're going to still see me around. I told my boss I want to work till I'm 85, so we'll see. See if I can keep up everything I'm doing till then. With the increase of older adults comes the increased risk of population becoming victims of financial abuse. That's why it's so important to get involved if you see something suspicious, whether it's in your own life or someone around you. You know, someone is talking to you about something, which I did have a customer that came in and was talking to me, what did I do? Was talking to me about a check that she had received. Maybe you're going to talk about that later. I'm not used to this computer. Sorry about that. I think I went, sorry. There we go. What is elder financial abuse? It's legally the improper use of an older person's money or property. Elder abuse is widespread. It's a widespread problem, and we're going to talk about all the different ways that you can be a victim of fraud. How does financial abuse occur? Sometimes you get things through the mail. It can be telling you that, let's go through the mail. You've won the lottery. Oh, well, okay. I'm going to stop right now and let my two other guests come up here and present what they want to present. Some of the stuff they're going to go through that's in this presentation, some sweetheart scams and grandparent scams, and we're going to talk about all the scams that are out there. But first, we want to welcome Brandon Gonzalez and Mike Browning from Homeland Security, and we've got Elisia Marcelino, however you say your name, I can never say her name right, from our compliance officer. She's Vice President BSA officer, which many of you don't know. BSA means Bank Secrecy Act, and she manages the Patriot Act. So she sees a lot of fraud. So if you guys want to plug in your computer here real quick, we'll go ahead and switch over to your computer. Where is my, do I need to shut this down first, or can I just unplug it? Okay. Bye. Wasn't that informative? I do know how to take an HDMI cable off. You sure you don't want to hear the national anthem? And then this can plug into your computer.
Great.
The other day, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamed I held you in my
Never plugged in,
arms.
though.
When I
Is that on?
Huh?
Is this on?
It was, yeah, because it was plugging in.
Oh, no pressure. All right. We're not getting power from the strip here.
We're not getting power from the strip. Can't get the HDMI cable to go in.
Now it is. There we go.
Which one's the HDMI?
No, it's on this side.
Oh, is that that's why it was on the other side. See, I don't know how to cook up an HDMI cable. So if I had a really Dan Hassey here from my community, he could tell you a really good joke. But he's not here. How about Tom? Tom Boyle. Maybe you know some jokes, huh? We're all part of the San Gorgonio Pass Rotary Club, so I wear many hats in this community. For those of you who don't know me, you know that I am president of the San Gorgonio Pass Rotary Club, as well as president of the Boys and Girls Club of the San Gorgonio Pass. So I get involved in the community a lot, and I'm also involved with Student of the Month Committee. Is your presentation ready? There we go. And I also am with the Pass EDA. So if you have any questions about any of that stuff, just ask me.
You're the only lady I know that has a visitor's pass to go home.
I do have a connection here in Sun Lakes, a few of them, so I can get in anytime I want to. I live in Serrano del Vista, which is another senior community just east of here. So.
These government computers are really quick to start up, so give me 1 second.
Okay, I'm going to step aside so you can.
I do apologize for being a little tardy, and thank you for your patience. I come from Long Beach. I drove out here, hit a little bit of traffic on the way in.
That's how important all this stuff is, folks.
Yeah, of course, there's always traffic. What else is new? Oh, I gotta be on the internet here. I got a hotspot in. Because it's, took me my OneDrive. Yeah, you want your hotspot? Yeah. There you go, we just got a hotspot in real quick. How many bars do you have?
Yeah, he's in Arizona now.
Sweet.
Yeah, and her name was Linda. That got my dog. Yeah. Yeah, so he's doing really well. They're living in
This one?
Arizona. Yeah, it's really. rather than just be waiting, I will give you a little bit of information. Oh, are we good? The Bank of Hemet will be changing its name in January. We are growing, we're expanding. We're now almost $1 billion bank. And so we will be called HCN Bank, which stands for Hemet California Nationwide. Nothing else is changing. Our board is the same, our owners are the same, all our management's the same, and our vision is the same, and our community service will stay the same. You'll just see a different logo and a different name, which will make a little more sense, because when I first came here and opened the branch in 2007, when I said Bank of Hemet, everybody said, why would I want to go to Hemet? And when you have the name of the city in your bank, that's what people say. So we're doing some nationwide lending now, and just look for that in January. We'll have a big splash and probably have a party at the bank, I hope. Okay, there you go. Only as you need them. Your checks will still work.
All right. Again, thank you everyone for your patience. I do apologize for the lateness, for running a little bit behind on time, but I'm Mike Browning. I'm the group supervisor. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm the group supervisor for the HSI Riverside Financial Group. So we cover Riverside and San Bernardino counties. We do quite a lot. We do a lot of money laundering cases, drug investigations, and a lot of that in the recent years has also encompassed elder fraud, which is why we're here today. Elder fraud, probably over the past 3 years, has really encompassed I would say, maybe 30 to 40% of our recent cases. So we have seen a dramatic increase in it. And us, along with the FBI, U.S. Postal Service, DOJ, we really are making a push to combat these crimes, which are more often than not foreign-based, international-based, and so we are uniquely situated as an agency to combat these crimes. So before we get into it, though, Mike Browning, I've been agent for about 10 years. Recently promoted in 2020 to the group supervisor position. My colleague here, Brandon Gonzalez, I'll let him introduce himself, but he's a great agent here and is the reason why we're here today.
Yeah, guys, so I work for Mike. I've been in the financial group for about 8 months. Before that, my background was in narcotics investigations. And my very first case I ever received in the financial group was an elder fraud scam, a romance scam. So we can kind of go through this PowerPoint and answer some questions if you guys have any at the end of it. And we can also tell you kind of the trends that we've been seeing recently and some of the red flags and the indicators that might help you guys out so that you don't become a victim yourself of some of the stuff we're going to talk about.
There you go. I feel like I'm leaning over this thing here. I'm going to pop this out. Oh, this is much better. Okay, before we get into it, shameless plug who HSI is. I don't think a lot of people really understand where HSI comes from, but HSI is the principal investigative arm of Homeland Security, born out of the U.S. Customs INS merger following the 9/11 attacks in 2003. We are over 7,000 special agents, both domestic and international. We have a very robust international footprint, which is also one of the reasons why we are, again, uniquely situated to combat these elder fraud schemes. We cover a wide range of investigations. You see our investigative portfolio there. If you can think of a crime, we probably cover it, just because of the border nexus and everything that comes and goes across the border, which would include elder fraud crimes again. And I'm gonna kind of push through this a little bit. I know we're a little bit short on time, and I want to have time for questions if you guys have questions at the end. So that's why I'm going at a little bit quicker pace. So just to get into the fraud scams and what we've been seeing and the uptick, we're going back. This chart goes back to 2001, and then you're going all the way to 2020, and you can just see the dramatic rise. And what happened in 2020? COVID, right? The world ended. Everybody was at home. Everybody was interacting more, I would say, with internet. Everyone was more had a more online footprint, which would include internet shopping, maybe internet dating, online dating. Your portfolios here. How many people in this room have a Facebook account? Almost everybody here has a Facebook account. Be careful what you post on your Facebook account, especially when it comes to family and names of relatives. People overseas will go through your social media to try to specifically target you, and we'll get into that. So elder exploitation, it's really any age group can be targeted for these scams. It's not like it's specifically situated just for 60 to 65 and up. We've had victims in our cases 30 years of age that have been victimized. Really, if they can get your money, they will go ahead and try to get your money. It doesn't really matter how old you are, but the vast majority of the victims in these cases are going to be elderly individuals, probably over the age of 60. There's many reasons for that, but baby boomers represent the largest and wealthiest generation in U.S. history. Everyone knows that. People overseas know that. The people that call you, the scam centers, the call centers, they understand that. How many people got a scam call today? Point taken. I get one several times a day. I'm sure Brandon gets one several times a day. It's something that we try to combat and we try to stop. And I'll get into it later. We do partner with private entities to try to stop those scam callers, but it is kind of an uphill battle. So getting into what might make the elderly population maybe a little more vulnerable to some of these scams. Three really main categories. Loneliness, maybe. Many of you might be living alone or might have a recent loss of a spouse. You might not have friends and relatives nearby. And these scammers will take advantage of that fact. And talking about memory loss, 1 in 10 people over the age of 65 will experience some sort of diminished faculty, which a lot of these scammers will take advantage of, unfortunately. And then silence. Many of the victims that we encounter, and this is where I'm going to harp on the most, they don't want to report these crimes. And we almost have to poke and prod the story out of them because maybe there's a little bit of embarrassment there. They don't want to be recognized as a victim. But by reporting those crimes, reporting that you're a victim to us, whether it's your local police department or calling us directly, that's going to help us investigate these crimes and maybe get some of the money back for you, or stop any further victimization of others. I don't know, Brandon, if you have anything to put in there, because Brandon actually is interacting with victims on a daily basis.
Yeah, the last one, the silence, not wanting to report that, that is the hardest thing for somebody in law enforcement over the course of our interview is getting people to understand that we're trying to get the story to help them, and that we're not judging them, that we're not, we're there to listen. And it is a difficult interview to be a part of because it is sad. When you hear some of these stories, those three main points, every single one of them remains true today. The biggest one is just trying to meet people, friends, a romantic relationship. And, I can understand where it may be a little embarrassing for somebody to admit that they were tricked or fell in love with somebody that doesn't actually exist. It's not just the elderly community, it's everybody. I mean, I don't know if there's any football fans out there, but the Manti Te'o story, Notre Dame football player, he didn't lose any money, but he fell for a romance scam. So like Mike said, it's a story that you want to believe, right? You want to believe that someone's there to have a friendship, have a romance relationship with you for all the right reasons. And unfortunately, the day where we're living today, you got to be very cautious. So that's the biggest one. If you guys look out for this or you're contacted by law enforcement or friends or family or anything like that, if law enforcement's there to interview you, it's not to judge, nothing like that. It's strictly to find out how we can help you guys and help out victims.
Thank you. How many here have seen The Tinder Swindler as well on Netflix? No? Go on Netflix, watch The Tinder Swindler, and you understand how romance scams work. It's amazing. Tinder Swindler on Netflix. Oh, okay. Well, in that case, just go on Netflix. Look it up. It's good. So moving on to the perpetrator profile. So for the most part, our focus is going to be on the strangers you don't meet. There's really two categories of people who are going to victimize. Strangers caregivers, people who have daily access, and then the strangers you don't meet. And that's really where we come in. People who are calling in, call centers, from India, Jamaica, maybe South Africa. They're actively combing through maybe social media, recent obituaries, maybe looking for recently widowed targets. They're going to actually maybe know your name, a little bit of background about you. They're actually going to tailor their approach to you. It's not just going to be a complete cold call where they don't know anything about you. They might go into this knowing a great deal more than you may realize. So of the top 10 fraud categories, imposter scams are far and above the most that we see, and is really far and above in terms of total loss amount. There's other scams which I want you guys to be aware of and actively looking for. Probably the most also would be online shopping. If anyone here gets suspicious emails in their email accounts about your Amazon or your Microsoft account, please don't click those. Please delete, please move on. No one's ever going to ask you for your password in an email or call you and ask you for your credentials or your password. Nobody ever is going to do that. So please do not become a victim through those scams. And they can be pretty sophisticated, as we'll get into later on. They can actually look very legitimate. The web pages that they send you to will look legitimate. But the imposter scams, again, are going to be the biggest loss in terms of just fraud. So we do, DHS as a whole, IRS, Social Security Administration, we do partner with the FTC. We try to combat as many of these calls as possible. I'm a Verizon customer, so a lot of times when these calls come in, I already get like a notice on my phone saying spam alert. So I can just click it, move on. But I would encourage you all to, if you don't know how, get on your phone. Whether you have an iPhone, which probably most people have, just silence unknown callers. And then, or if you need help, go to Apple, ask them how to filter out and silence people you don't know. If they're not in your contact list, they can call, they can leave a voicemail, that's fine. But that way you're not getting actual calls from these people. It just goes to voicemail and you're not actually interacting with them. So some of the tactics they can use, and Brandon can get into this too and attest to some of this, but I would say the biggest thing, and we already kind of talked about this, is how they're going to tailor it to you, a specific profile almost, where they might search obituaries, they might reference some sort of phone call they sent earlier, maybe you may or may not remember, but they're also going to be very insistent over the phone. They can be very demanding, almost to the point of yelling at their victims. And if anyone has ever been in a high-stress situation where someone's actively screaming at you, we as humans have a tendency to lock up, and we don't really know what to do, and then you kind of ask yourself, well, how would someone fall victim to that? But then you actually hear the phone calls, and you actually hear what happened, and these people just have that natural response. Their brain almost shuts down, and they go and they send money. And you go, well, how is that possible? It's because of that stress they're inducing on them. And also they're discouraging that victim not to tell anyone. Again, that silence aspect, right? They don't want you to report these crimes. Because if you're not reporting these crimes, you can be victimized again. So they're going to discourage you. They're going to make it seem like they're the real police. They're not the real police. The real police will never call you like this. The real police will show up at your door. They'll look like us. They'll have badges. They'll have credentials. They're not going to call you and ask you to send you money. No one's ever going to call you with an arrest warrant and ask you to send money. That is not how this works. This is probably a little more advanced, but I'm not going to get into the weeds of this because we did this presentation for also people in the banking industry, fellow law enforcement partners, but this is kind of like a call center scam layout, so you guys have an understanding of if someone is trying to victimize you, all the different parts that are taking place to get your money back to them, more often than not maybe in India or Africa or Jamaica, and they'll have a network here in the United States really to pick up that money, which we call couriers, consolidators. So if you ever are prompted to send money via FedEx, UPS, don't do it. Never send money, never send any type of cryptocurrency, never send any type of wire to a bank account you don't recognize. I would just discourage you to sending any money, period. I'm gonna make you all paranoid here as I sit up here and talk. So just some of the updated trends that we've been seeing, and these are active victims that we get in our cases. And I would say this is more maybe born out of recent romance scams where maybe somebody meets somebody online, and then they kind of have this backstory of, hey, I need some money to start up whatever, a business, to get out of country. They're ill, they're sick, but then they say, oh, can you take that money and I need you to go to an ATM to send Bitcoin out, which Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, very recent. How many here even understand what Bitcoin is? 1, 2 people? Yeah, 2 years ago, I was like, I don't know what Bitcoin is either, but it has exploded in value. And there's these ATMs around the area, and there's not many, but you can go online, Google, and find these ATMs, and you can go there with actual money, deposit money in these ATMs, and there's this wallet address that'll pop up, and you can't see it in this photo. It's very small, but it's a very long alphanumeric address. We're talking like a bunch of, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, it just goes on and on and on. And that's where they want you to send that money. If anyone ever asks you to prompt to do that, no, that's the biggest red flag there is. Do not do that. Once you send that, we can't recover that money. That money is gone. Well, we do have a short video. I just don't think, look, I don't think we really have time to maybe play it. We have until when? 2:30. Oh, 2:30. Oh. Oh, wow, we have a lot of time. Okay. Okay, well, if we do have some time, I don't have to go so fast here. This video is great because it does get into the actual scams and how they work. It has live recordings of people calling victims. You actually can hear it and how it works. Plus, it's a little funny as well because they get some payback on these scammers. Let me make sure the audio should be on here. Yeah, we're good.
Tienen un eco.
I hate to break this to you, but this whole thing is a scam.
What do I do now?
I'll tell you what to do, Tracy. You leave this to me and Jim. The first thing we did was look at the address they told her to ship the money to. And given there were 6 cameras outside, this clearly was some kind of safe house for the scammers. We then had Tracy call FedEx to cancel the package, but just in case, we hired 2 PIs to be on the scene that day to intercept it. And we knew we shouldn't do that right in front of the house because they'd probably be watching. But since we weren't sure which direction the FedEx truck would come from, we overnight shipped a package to a bunch of their neighbors that explained they were randomly selected to win one of these super cool glitter bomb t-shirts. And if you wanted to buy one of these from markrover.com to help support making more videos like this, I'm certainly not going to stop you. This will allow us to speak to the delivery driver somewhere up the street to get the package stopped in time. And the plan worked flawlessly. Because despite Tracy's efforts to get it stopped, her package was in fact out on the truck for delivery.
Tracy, something, yeah, if that's the one, don't further this one, please. This is the frozen one. If that one's gone, that's also done, some further on? Okay.
But in a wild twist, there was a second package going to the same location addressed to the same fake name. Her name was Phyllis, and we later found out her package contained even more cash than Tracy's.
Okay, so that one's going back, right? And then,
And FedEx was cool enough to eventually return the packages, so both Tracy and Phyllis got all their money back. And when the scammers angrily called Tracy back, asking why the package didn't arrive, she explained she accidentally selected 2-day shipping instead of next-day air, so they would get the package tomorrow. And that's where we switched from defense to a very light offense. And so the next day, we delivered the package in an official-looking vest.
have a good holiday. Thank you.
And waited for the sweet retribution.
Hello. You guys give up, or you're thirsty for more?
But for the first time in 3 years of glitter bombing criminals, someone didn't immediately throw the box outside, and he just sat there with the wretched smell, leaving the box untouched. And then as we waited, wondering what his game plan was going to be, suddenly a bunch of NYPD officers started showing up, and it didn't take them long to figure things out.
It's a glitter bomb. It has a camera built into it. There's a camera built into this.
We had a phone number on the box, and they called us up, and I explained the whole situation, and I'll just say there was some mutual admiration for each other's work. I mean, there might be cameras on there, officer. And as it happens, the reason the scammer would call the cops on himself is because he isn't a scammer. This is Gary, and it turns out he's a super nice guy. But Gary runs an Airbnb, and once you go in that door, there are 2 rooms upstairs that he rents out to people. So this wasn't a safe house at all. These scammers would use Airbnb to get a temporary address they would only use once. But if that's true, that meant the scammers must have been there yesterday. So Gary showed us his security footage, and we saw this woman in an orange jacket who appeared right as the PI was talking with the FedEx driver up the street. She also looks directly at the camera, and then decides it's probably cold enough outside to zip her jacket all the way up. Once the FedEx truck passes and she realizes he skipped by her, she hurries over to talk to him, and when he told her he had nothing for her for that day, she walks right back to her car, never stepping foot inside the Airbnb. The PI's got all the license plates on the street that day, and it turns out her name is Crystal. You should remember that name for later. So then Gary showed us who booked the room. It was this guy from Utah with a brand new account and 0 reviews. In fact, when the reservation was booked, he sent this message in awkward English at 3:06 a.m., which happens to be just after lunch in India. So I did some more research and learned that after the scammer in India found a willing victim, they would use a money mule and have the victim send the cash there. So Crystal in this case was the mule. But instead of sending the package to the money mule's house, they use an Airbnb. Then the mule gives the package to a supervisor who deposits the cash and wire transfers the remaining money back to the scammer. And they must have got spooked because Crystal was long gone the next day, which meant we caught poor Gary in the crossfire. But he wanted them caught just as much as us, so we compensated him handsomely just for being cool about everything. So we'll call that round a tie. We stopped the scammers from receiving 2 packages containing $30,000, but they were still glitter-free. But before I show you exactly how we tip the scales in our favor, let me explain exactly how this scam works so well at tricking so many people. There's an email that goes along with the scam that basically says the same thing as the robocall, which is Amazon just charged you $200, but if you don't recognize this charge, please call right away to have it refunded. So when you call, they say, I'd be happy to walk you through the refund process on your computer. So just type this here and simply install this, and then I'll be able to fully help you out. And most victims don't really comprehend that they've just installed a remote software program that gives the scammers full access to their computer. Now they're ready for the scam. They tell her that some accounts have actually already had their refunds automatically processed, so she needs to check her bank account to make sure the $200 refund isn't already there. And when Bessie here asks if he can see her banking info, he explains in technical terms,
it's a 3D page, so I cannot see anything.
Okay. And so sure enough, she hasn't got the refund yet, so he needs just about 5 minutes to work with his billing department in order to process it. But first, he makes a really big deal about this.
I'm signing out from your account in front of your own eyes.
And this is true. He actually does sign out. at which point he triggers her screen to go black so she can't see anything that he's doing. And then he immediately logs back in using the browser pre-stored username and password. He's going to do a simple browser HTML edit on this page to temporarily make this Lowe's purchase look like a refund for $20,000, and you'll see why in a minute. And as he's editing away, he chats her up to try and build trust.
You are like my granny, Miss Bessie. Do you know this?
Yes.
She was like one of my closest friends. I used to share each and everything with her.
You mean like what you do for a living? And you might be wondering, why doesn't he just wire transfer himself money while he has unrestricted access to her account? But the problem there is that it's traceable and it would likely get flagged by the bank's fraud detection system anyways. But if you can get an old lady to mail you cash, it's so untraceable, the authorities don't even begin to try and track it down. Now that he's finished, he unblinks her screen and he informs her that unfortunately the billing department couldn't process the refund, so they have one last option to try.
This is the Chase online refund server.
It's actually just a text window that does absolutely nothing. It's pure theater.
It is an irreversible form. Whatever you are typing it over there, put it in a correct manner. Nothing would be changed over here.
Basically, he makes a big deal for 3 minutes that she's the one that has to enter all the information, and anything that gets typed there is immediately permanent. Maybe you can see where this is headed. So her name, last four of social, zip code, and finally refund amount.
Please enter your refund amount.
If you go back, you can actually hear him type the 2 extra zeros on his keyboard and hit enter.
Check everything. Is it correct?
Oh, no, this is a mistake. Oh, I screwed up.
Jesus.
It was supposed to be a 200 in there. Oh, God almighty. I'm exhausted. I can't do this. My mind is absolutely fried.
Please check your account. Did you really receive that money in your account? Oh my God. Plus 20,000.
Yeah.
Please save my job, ma'am. If I'll not earn for my family will die due to hunger, due to starvation.
Yes, of course. I mean, what should I do? I mean, I can...
Feeling bad for you. You are also like my grandmother.
You know, I'm an honest
You are making
person.
me cry now. You are making me cry now. I'm getting attached to you.
Now, how do I fix this?
He tells her that unfortunately mailing a check or wiring money would just take too long, so he needs to think for a minute. And then he comes back with this.
Hello, Miss Bessie?
Yes.
I got an option.
And you can see now how he's got her to the point where she's totally willing to send $20,000 in the mail and to lie to the folks at the bank or FedEx or even her family who might try and stop it. In her mind, she messed up. And because she's a good, empathetic person, she'll go through great lengths to make it right for someone she doesn't realize is a heartless scammer. And on top of weaponizing their empathy, maintaining pressure on their victim is a key tactic. They keep them on the phone the whole time, even as they drive to the bank, or they yell at them.
Go to the UPS. Why don't you go to the UPS?
Or call this many times in a row. And if you've ever seen this clip,
Name a woman.
Name a woman.
Yes.
you already know when you're under extreme stress, it's an actual biological response for the part of our brain that does critical thinking to just shut down.
Yes, this is so hard. Name a woman.
Once they're back from the bank with the cash, they coach them through packing it. In Tracy's case, they had her put $100 bills in the pages of a book so it couldn't be detected in the mail. In other cases, they had the victims wrap the cash in saran wrap so the dogs can't sniff it, and then foil so it can't be x-rayed. But unfortunately, there's a small portion of the population that are just too trusting for their own good. And sadly, it's nearly always older folks. So for the scammers, it's just a game of percentages to find them. According to the data Jim has gathered from the scammers' own computers, in one shift, a call center like this with about 25 employees will send out 500,000 robocalls. They'll get about 500 calls back and land maybe 5 to 10 victims like Bessie or Tracy or Phyllis. And speaking of Phyllis, after we got FedEx to send back her package, I was able to get in touch with her son, and I found out her husband of 40 years had passed away the very week she was being scammed of her life savings. The scammers knew she was mourning this loss, but once you're scammed, your phone number is really valuable because it means you're an easy mark. So they sold her info to other scammers, and she was scammed twice more the same week her husband died. And as hard as it was for me to even hear a backstory like that, it just made me that much more motivated to seek some glitter bomb retribution for all the Phyllises out there, and perhaps in the process, we might stumble upon some good information that we could pass on to the authorities. So now we need another scammer to send a glitter bomb to, but we decided when Jim spots a scam in progress, it's better for him just to stop it cold and not stress out the victim any more than they already are. So we reached out to our friend Pierogi from the YouTube channel Scammer Payback, because whenever Pierogi gets a scam call to his actual phone, he turns on his cameras, makes his voice sound like an old lady, and has some fun.
If they will ask you in your bank, like, why you are withdrawing this much of cash, what you gonna tell them?
I'm getting it for Derek Wilson from Microsoft.
No, man, no. You need to tell them that you are withdrawing the cash for your personal reason.
And it didn't take long for fake victim, old woman Pierogi, to get us an address in New Jersey.
Is this where I'm sending it to?
Right. Grab the box, right? So you can put the cash.
Yeah, I've already got a box. It's big enough.
This one was actually to a hotel and not an Airbnb. But as soon as we pulled up, once again, a money mule was out there waiting for us. So they took the package and drove around for a couple of hours, and when it was clear they weren't going to open it...
Yeah, that does go on for like another 10 minutes. It's a little repetitive. It's the same thing, just another scam. But before we move on, our colleague here would like to say a couple of things.
I just want to say, so these these scammers will tell you not to say anything to your bank, your relatives, your friend, your children, your family, anybody. So I'm in our bank, we ask, when something's out of pattern, we will inquire with you, oh, are you buying a car? Anyway, so this situation happened twice in my bank last week. Two different scammers. One involved an email and crypto, and the other one involved a phone call from Norton Antivirus. So just please be aware. It happens every single day. I see it all the time. So just the biggest thing is please talk to somebody. If you think it's a scam, talk to your family, your friends, your kids, just kind of, and then many of you know Linda. Please ask Linda if you're unsure if it's a scam or not. So that's all I have.
Thank you. That's very useful tips. Brandon, do you have anything to want to add?
Yeah, just really what she said. Hopefully, if you're at a bank, you get a helpful banker, right? That has you think about it a little bit. But before you get there, always just kind of consider. I'm sure everybody, or many of us have had family members ask for money for legitimate reasons, and you would never put it in a book, right? Tape it to pages and send it in the mail. You wouldn't send it via Bitcoin because, like Mike said, I had a very small understanding of what Bitcoin was and how to send Bitcoin and how to receive Bitcoin before I joined the financial team. It's not a normal request, and those Bitcoin ATMs are very rarely used for legitimate purposes. So if someone's sending you to one, just kind of think about that. But always just have that in the back of your mind. You don't want to have that jaded outlook, right, that everybody's out to get you. But if someone's asking you for a request that seems a little odd, sending money to a stranger, right? You might be dealing with somebody that you developed a relationship online that you've never met. They're asking you for money, but they're asking you to send to a different name. It's another red flag. Why wouldn't you just send that money directly to the source of where it needs to go instead of sending it to somebody else at a different address? So hopefully, your banks have warning letters that are easily available. It's easy to get caught up in these things, like that video showed. They pressure you. They tug on your heartstrings a little bit and try and establish some kind of rapport with you. But at the end of the day, you always have to kind of ask yourself, is this a normal thing to do? If I'm sending money to somebody that I know and that I care about, would they ever ask me to do it in this weird way, right? And the answer is probably no. If you were to get a request from a family member to use some money, there'd be, you'd probably just pull out that money and drive it to their house, or, find a normal way of delivering it. But definitely, it's the weirdest thing is when we were getting these cash seizures and they're inside of magazines and there's a $100 bill taped to every page in that magazine. You wonder, why would anyone fall for this? But then you see how these guys operate, and it's sophisticated and it's believable. And if you're really having that concern that you're getting ripped off and you need to repay your debts, that thought process gets a little jumbled. So just always remember, is this a normal thing? Would a family member ever ask me to actually do this? And the answer is usually no.
Thank you. All good tips. As we move on here, this is more for usually more the law enforcement audience, but also helpful tips for you as well. HSI, we also do a lot of immigration investigations, and a part of that would be human smuggling. And we have seen accounts of human smugglers actually smuggling people in the U.S. Who are actually maybe here to perpetuate elder fraud. So just something to be aware of, that these people might be here in the United States, just really the purpose of gaining access, close access to you. Again, going back several slides, that strangers you meet category, caregivers, people who might have access to you, to your financial information. Just always be cognizant of what you're sharing is really just what I want to pass on. And just as Brandon was explaining, nobody, even your own family, is going to ask you to send money in a National Geographic magazine with $100 bills taped to the inside, or in a shoebox, or in a toy box. But sadly, when these scammers call up and they pretend to be somebody else, sometimes these people do fall for it. One of the more common scams is the grandparent scam, where they'll call, and from social media, from Facebook, they might know your grandkid's name, your nephew's name, and once you kind of latch onto that and realize, oh, is that who I'm talking to? They go, oh, yeah, it's me, but I'm in trouble. Please don't tell my parents. Let's just keep this between me and you. I need money. And next thing you know, you're sending money because you think you're talking to someone you know. And we've thankfully returned some money to victims through that, and when we interview them and talk to them, they're like, yeah, I thought it was my nephew calling me, and I thought it was odd. Well, yeah, first red flag, your nephew's calling you from a different number with a weird story. Don't tell mom and dad, but I need money, and they end up sending it.
Or they say they're overseas. Your grandchild traveled overseas. The parents don't know. What was I going to say? So the scammers will call you, the grandparent, to say your grandchild's in trouble. Please send money. I've seen that happen many times also.
Yes, definitely. And then, again, this is probably the biggest explosion, I would say, the most recent trend. I think most of your cases recently have been romance scams. Again, as especially during COVID, people turn to the internet for dating. That's all fine and well, nothing wrong with it. Just got to be careful of who you're talking to, who's on the other end of that profile. Whether you're on Tinder, Facebook, an app, eHarmony, whatever. Scammers are often going to assume the identities of U.S. people, and when they're actually in India, South Africa, Jamaica, and they're going to lure you into some type of relationship. They're going to establish some trust. They'll share stories, they'll share photos, but then over time, they're going to start asking you for money, and it might be small amounts at first. It might not seem that outrageous, but they might ask for more money, and that's what we've seen as these cases progress. At a certain point, that there's a comfort level, and that person is sending $100,000, $200,000 to this person they think they have a legitimate relationship with online. Talking about that Netflix special earlier, these women in that Netflix special most of them were in their 30s. And this guy was so sophisticated enough where he was essentially able to run a Ponzi scheme off of women he met online and get them to really fund his lavish lifestyle, all through establishing relationships. And it was really quite sophisticated, probably more than anything we would normally come across. But again, anybody can fall victims to these scams. It's just an example. This is obviously a fake photograph. This man in Nigeria doctored, but here he is in bed with this, the cords all hanging out of him, like he needs, medical aid, and he would send this out to his victims. He would recycle this photo. This is, he would just send this out repeatedly to everyone. Oh, I'm having this trouble. Please send money to me, and it was all staged. Probably not really related to this audience, but I do want to kind of just touch upon this because this is something you might come across, maybe more in the sense of your online profile, whether or not you're on Amazon or Microsoft. How many of you have an Amazon Prime account? Oh yeah. Invest in Amazon. So Amazon Prime, great service, right? My own email, I probably get several emails a week from fake Amazon tech support, and I don't know why, but they think for some reason I'm my mother. So it's addressed to my mother, Carol, to my own email address. And I find it comical. She must have somehow linked something online, and now I'm forever linked to my mother on my email account. But they'll get me to try to, oh, your Amazon account has been frozen, or even some accounts I don't even have. They just will send this stuff out on the hopes that you're just going to click this link and that you're going to provide your credentials to them. Or a lot of times I would get PayPal emails, again, somehow linked to my mother, that she bought a MacBook. And, oh, was this you that purchased this MacBook for $1,000? And you're like, wait, what? Why am I getting these emails? They're just repeatedly trying to reach out, get you to click on this link. And when you click on it, those web pages, they're going to look legitimate. And you can be easily fooled by it if you don't know what you're looking for. Kind of just hit on this here. So these are some of the success stories we've had, HSI, as an agency in combating elder fraud. So Project Jolt was the Jamaican operations linked to telemarketing. The Jamaican lottery scam has been around for quite some time, one of the more prevalent schemes. The scammer essentially informs the victim that they have won a lottery or a sweepstakes, but they need to make some sort of payment to unlock the prize. So going back quite a number of years to the original kind of Nigerian prince scam. I'm the Nigerian prince and my fortune's tied up, and if you only send me this small payment, I can send you millions of dollars in return. You're like, obviously that's not true. And over time, these scams have grown much more sophisticated than the old Nigerian prince scam. So out of this, we were able to arrest 2 of the principal money launderers in the United States by HSI, and then we had 6 additional scammers arrested by Jamaican authorities. And of this, we identified 20 victims with the collective loss of $2.9 million. So it does add up. I mean, 20 people, that's a lot of money right there, spread across 20 people. This is another success story, HSI versus, US versus H Global et al. This was a much bigger case targeting companies in India that were operating the network of actual call centers. So a lot of times when these people call you, and I sometimes have fun with it because I let it go through and then I talk to them for a little bit and mess with them, but you can hear the Indian accent. I mean, I think a lot of people in this room are educated enough to recognize that somebody maybe isn't from the United States, and that it's very unusual for someone just to call you like that. I've gotten calls from Customs and Border Protection saying I have an arrest warrant, which I find comical, that my car is used to smuggle drugs. And I say, do tell, and we get into the whole backstory, and they get me to try to send money. Eventually, they realize I'm just messing with them, and they hang up on me. This was our own personal case, so I can actually get into more of this. This man, Anush Patel, was recently sentenced to 9 years in federal custody. And what he did, so going back to, remember that call center layout I had? I kind of breezed over it, but he was in that chart, and he had a liquor store in Lake Elsinore. And what he would do is when all those money mules would go around and pick up those packages, so those people you saw in that video, that Crystal who was waiting outside the Airbnb, she would take it to people like Anush Patel. And Anush Patel's job was to take all that money, unbox it, count it, send photographs of that money to essentially his bosses overseas, and then he would pass it on to another person who would move that money to India. He was personally responsible for, I can't remember what the actual amount was, but he was ordered to pay back nearly $500,000 in restitution to his victims. Of what we were able to prove, going back through all the victims and interviewing them, the way federal sentencing guidelines work, he maxed it out. There's 25 victims in the case with an X amount of dollar loss. He went well above and beyond the amount required to get maximum time in federal prison. The judge actually wanted to send him to more, but he was capped. So he got 9 years for that. I know, dang, that's it, right? Like, you should be getting 20 years for that. So just some tips for prevention. I think we've been kind of harping on this the entire time, but it might be a little uncomfortable topic, but everyone here is a potential victim. I think that's the first thing to recognize, is that anybody can really fall victim to these scams. It's not just a certain segment of the population. So check in on your loved ones, your neighbors, your friends, talk to your kids. I talked to my parents about it. My parents know well enough not to click on links or answer suspicious emails. Well, my dad does. My mom, God bless her heart, I don't know. She might be a little suspect on this, but I have faith in my dad that he wouldn't fall victim to any of these scams. Poor Carol. But again, and also, this last segment, again, partner with HSI, just call your local law enforcement. Call somebody. If you think you've been a victim of a scam, or you have a question mark on anything that's going on, you think this just doesn't sound right, before you send that money or send that wire transfer or do anything you think is suspicious, just report it. There's no harm in it. If it's not suspicious, not a big deal. If it is something, great, you reported it, and we're able to investigate it, and you're not a victim. I don't want to make you guys paranoid as I stand up here. You guys are gonna look at everyone in your house like, I know what you're up to. But just be careful who you have in and around your home. Choose your caregivers with caution. And again, unsolicited phone calls, no one should be calling you for any reason. Nobody. And when we call people, we jump through the hoops. We've gotten on FaceTime with people, say, hey, you want to see who we are? We're the real police. I have no problem actually showing you my face, meeting with you in person. We have flown out to actually meet with victims in Florida in person, show credentials. These guys are not going to go through those hoops. And again, just be aware of everything going on. If it's suspicious, it probably is. And then the last thing I do want to share, I keep harping on this. I'm probably beating a dead horse a little bit. Just report it. Don't be embarrassed. These things might happen. They do happen to millions of people. I'm not sure what the actual amount is. It's not millions every day, but of all the calls they send out, right, they send out thousands of calls a day. They get maybe 500 people to actually call back. Only 5 to 10 from that number, right, actually sent money. Well, that 5 to 10 a week times how many call centers, times how many calls they make. I mean, the victim count is probably in the thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars annually, and then compound that by how much money they send. You know, could be a multi-million-dollar, if not a billion-dollar, scam industry. So if you come across these scams, just report it.
Can we go back to the one prior to that one?
Oh, absolutely. Which one? Oh, the caregiver. That one?
I'm going to put that in the newsletter. Okay. Yeah.
Of course.
Perfect. Thank you.
I just want to add, I also see a lot of caregiver scams, tons of caregiver scams. They'll steal your checks, they'll forge your names, they'll take your money, they leave you with nothing. So please, if you know someone that has a caregiver, kind of check and make sure, their important documents are locked up or hidden somewhere. Or check on them, make sure that everything's secure so it doesn't happen.
Thank you. Yeah, the key takeaways, again, I'm probably at this point belaboring the point here, but this is what we're doing right now. We're talking about these scams. We're conducting the outreach. This is why we're here. We don't want anyone in this room to fall victim to a scam. We don't want any of your friends or relatives to fall victim to a scam. So just talk about them. The more we get the word out, the awareness out, the less likelihood someone's going to fall victim. And hopefully over time, we see those numbers, that spike that we saw in 2020, we start to see that come down. Oops. This is more for the banking industry, but also, as we talked about, those in the bank might be looking out for you. My colleague here doing a great job spotting those potential scams that are ongoing in your bank. Sometimes the banks aren't good about it, and sometimes they do fail. It's not infallible. It's not like, well, the bank let me send the wire out, so it must be okay. Not the case. This is a case in LA where an 81-year-old woman, she had a little bit of some memory lapses. She went to 3 separate Chase branches in the same day and wired out $600,000. You would think the bank would go like, wait a second here, like, what are you doing this for again? They just let her do it. There was only one teller that actually was like, hold on a second, like, what are you doing? And they're like, I'm not gonna let you wire this money. So the guys are on the phone with her and they just instruct her to go to a different branch. And then the next teller is like, well, sounds good, no problem at all, and they let that wire go. So again, just because the bank's letting it go through doesn't mean it's an okay transaction. So this is my contact information. Again, you don't have to call me, direct. I encourage. I don't want to get like a flood of phone calls, but I encourage you all to call your local department. But if you do think you've actually been victimized or you sent money, call me. We will answer the phone. We will try. We have contacts with FedEx, with UPS, with the banking industry. We will stop that. Try to stop that transaction from actually going through. And a lot of times we are successful in doing so. I'm not sure there's anything really too much to add. Brandon, do you have anything else you want to add? Yeah, we're going to open the floor to some questions.
I do want to add some things too. I'm not going to go back to my presentation, but we just saw a grandparent scam in the Bank of Hemet. They came in to withdraw $8,000 because their grandson was overseas. They were sure they'd talk to him. They didn't want to tell us anything. But our tellers at the bank we are all trained on cybersecurity and questions to ask. And so if your bank asks questions, don't think they're trying to pry into your business. They're trying to protect you. And so with getting the story out of them, we finally realized it was really not their grandson that was calling them. It was a scam. My husband got scammed, or tried to, when he was alive. Our supposed grandson called him and said, oh, I need money, I'm in Mexico and I need money. And he called me and I said, it's a scam, hon. Call your son. He said, well, he told me not to call anybody, and that's exactly what they do. And so our grandson was upstairs in the bedroom. We're also getting a lot of check fraud right now, so be careful where you mail things, your bills. They get your checks, they have your account number, they have the routing number, they have your signature. Sometimes they'll even make checks with their name and address on it. I don't know if you've seen that. And then it starts clearing your account. So check your account every day. Online banking is your friend. It is not evil. You need to have online banking and you need to check it every day. And don't click on those links like they were saying. If you're not expecting an email with a link attached, don't click on it. Call the person, even if it's your friend. Did you send me this email? And I've caught a couple that way where their mail was spoofed, their email was spoofed, and they got it. And they've gotten checks that, we'll look at and say, this is probably not a valid check. We had one that was a stolen, fraudulent cashier's check. And we get those all the time, and we get notices from the banks. So when they are quizzing you, it's for your own good. We're not trying to pry into your business. We're trying to help you. And we have a lot of security at the Bank of Hemet. We have a lot of cyber security that we get notices on. So we're just seeing a lot of different kinds of fraud right now. I could go on for hours of all the different kinds of fraud that we're seeing. But the biggest one is the grandparent fraud and the lottery fraud. If it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So don't believe, the lottery's not going to call you. The Publishers Clearinghouse is not going to call you and tell you to send a check or wire money through Western Union to somebody in Utah that's a person for your taxes. They're going to show up with balloons and the cameras and all of that good stuff at your doorstep. They're not going to call you. They're not going to mail you a check and say, put this in the bank and then send me $200 for your taxes. Well, that check's going to bounce and you're going to be out your money. So if you'd ever like to talk to any of us at the bank, we're always there to help you. the presentation that I gave some copies of, it does have some resources as to who you can call. Our local police department, Matt Hamner, all of them are very, very helpful. It's just so prevalent and so huge that they can't get to it all. So just be careful. That's the main thing, is be very, very careful. Did you want to open it up for some questions? Because I know we're running low on time.
No, we're doing fine.
Are we good?
We're good.
Anybody have any questions? There we go.
I have a situation I went through that drove me crazy for about 9 months. Somebody was sending out illegal checks and putting my name, address, and phone number on top. This went on for 9 months, sending checks. I was getting calls from police and lawyers and people who had put the money in the bank and wanted their money, and this went on 9 months. And it wasn't, the only reason I found out is one of them they had sent out came back to my address, and I opened it up to see what it was, and I thought, whose check is this, you know? And I called the police. They said, well, we can't do anything. And so I didn't know what to do, and then all of a sudden I'm getting some more back, and all these phone calls. I was getting at least 5 calls a day with complaints, and so many lawyers and people. So I don't know how that happened. I guess they can just steal your address out of the phone book or on the internet, but I hope it doesn't happen to anybody else.
That's called identity theft. So someone got a hold of your social security number, and that's why you never give out your social security number to anybody that calls you on the phone. They got your social security number, and they can set up. That's another sign, is when you start getting debt collectors calling you and everything, that is your identity has been stolen. Report it to your bank. Get your accounts. Oh, okay. Well, that's a different. Okay. But one of the things we're seeing, too, are the utility scams, where they call you and say that we're going to turn your electricity off unless you send us money. We are getting the yes scam, where someone says, is this Linda Handley? And you say yes. Well, they've recorded your yes, so that is they use that to say that you said yes to their service. The text scam, which Agent touched on, where they call and say they're from Microsoft and they need to get into your computer and they even know which service you're using, whether you're using Verizon or Spectrum or whatever, that they need to get into your account. All scams are designed to put you in panic mode, which you kind of touched on too. And I think, Ann, did you have something to comment on? Because this is one that I was talking about earlier.
Let's stand up here. I just recently was the potential of a scam, and what happened was I was sitting in here and I got a text message saying that I had an antique desk that was on a marketplace for $9,999, and they would like to buy it. And I kind of waited a while, and then he says, we're anxious to know if you accept our offer. Anyway, to make a long story short, they sent me the check. They sent me a check, and then they said they included money for somebody who was going to pick it up and take it away, or this desk. It ended up being $13,000. And I had come in to talk to Linda about it, and I said part of the reason I didn't get scammed was I have a big mouth. I talked to everybody about it. I talked to my family, I talked to people at lunch, and they all started giving me kind of like, and I had a little time. I wasn't pressured by time. So anyway, I got the check. They sent it, and they had it, they gave me the tracking number, and they tracked it, and it came to my house, and it came on a Friday night, or I picked it up on a Friday night. And I noticed the check was made from School's First Credit Union. So I looked that up on the I never heard of it, and I looked it up on the internet, and they had an office in Moreno Valley. So Saturday morning, got the check Friday night. Saturday morning, I go over to Moreno Valley with the check. And while I'm there, whoever was doing this said, did you get the check? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of town. And so I gave myself a little extra time. So I brought the check in, and I said, I'd like to know if this check is good. It was over $13,000. And they looked at it, and then they came up and they said, oh, we're sorry, it's no good. I said, I was so happy. Because, yeah. So I held on to the check. And then Monday they said, are you back in town? And I said, no, it's going to be 8 to 10 days. I'm going to be out of town. So in the meantime, I had talked to Linda about it. I went into the office and showed her, and I reported it to the local police. I reported it to the postal inspector. I didn't know about you. I would have reported it to you. And then I finally texted back and said, I'm on my way to the bank. And he had said, I'm assuming it's a he had said the check would clear, and then he would send somebody to pick the thing up. So that meant that they wanted a few days. It would take a couple days or something. So anyway, the check did not have the route. It had the correct routing number for the Schools First, had no account number, and it was not written. It was very official looking. It was a cashier's check, and it was on bank paper, looked very good, both back and front. And so that was one of the things, and it was good to be able to go in and talk to Linda, and she warned me about it. And then when I brought the check to them, they already knew that banks or Schools First had some problems with it. But just talk to everybody.
We get notices of all the time from different organizations that there's bogus cashier's checks out there, that they're not good. And Schools First was one of them. And we have a way to look up the way their checks should look. And it was obviously a fraudulent check. And when Ann first started talking to me about it, I'm like, this sounds like a scam to me, but let's see where it goes. But any other questions? Or yes, we have another question over here.
I keep getting emails that say, oh, you need to contact us. The address that this thing is supposed to be delivered to is wrong. And I go, scam. But what are they after? Pardon?
Personal information.
Oh, okay.
Any way they can get. Yeah. Oh. So most of it's personal information. Confirming your address that you actually live there. Kind of like your situation, where obviously you have nothing to do with those bad checks, but someone got your address and your name, and they were able to attach that onto a fake check, and now people are calling you about it. It's a personal information thing.
So as long as I keep killing them, then I'm
yeah, and you can
right.
even block that email address entirely. That's what we tell a lot of the victims to do, that have a online relationship with somebody, and they find out, hey, this person isn't who they say they are. How can I get them to stop calling me? Because they call me from, they email me, they text me, they call me. We just say, if you're done with them, just block them. Block them all. Okay. There's usually a little button next to a phone number that you receive, and you can block this caller. Email address is the same thing. You can block an email address, and then they hopefully won't contact you anymore.
Mine just says report. I click
Report
on a
this.
thing that says report a scam, and I.
Yeah, and that does the job. And unfortunately, it's a numbers game, and they blast out those emails to all over the place, and they'll, it might be a name, and then the next email will come from a similar name, but it has a different number attached to it or something like that. So you just got to be careful, read each one, definitely look at all the email addresses and make sure, if it says it's from PayPal or from Chase Bank, make sure there's no misspellings in the email address, because that's a big one. They'll spoof an email address and change one little letter or add a letter or something like that. But it's mostly to get your personal information.
Well, I don't buy much over the internet, so when they say my package is not coming, I think
There's
to
the red
myself,
flag right there, right? Yeah. So that was another thing I actually wanted to talk to you guys about, is the Facebook post on the personal information thing, how they gather this is, you know, you got to be careful who you're friends with and if your profile is public or not. So some of the victims that I deal with, how they got victimized is these people have Facebook accounts. It may be a male, but it's not actually the male, the picture of the person, it's not actually them. But they'll look at your Facebook profile, and if you post that a family member passed away or, you know, whatever personal information, they'll exploit that. And they'll send you a message and say, hey, I know you're going through hard times. I know this happened to your family. That happened to me too. Kind of like that video, oh, you remind me of your grandma, you know, that kind of thing. They'll look at your Facebook profile and they'll try and kind of capitalize on that stuff. So be careful what you post, especially, you know, like if it's personal information. I know they've already covered it, but like social security numbers, your address and stuff like that, you know, it's just not a good idea. And there are predators out there that look for these kind of things, that try and exploit these kind of things. So, but you brought that up and it reminded me of the personal information thing. They'll use that to try and bypass security protocols. Like when you call your bank and they ask you, you know, hey, can you answer these 3 security questions so we can confirm your identity? Sometimes people post stuff like that, you know, like a popular question, what's the first model of the very first car you owned or something like that. You know, if you fill out those surveys online that get passed around and you post that on your page, that's something that can potentially exploit that. And we've had that, not with the elder community, but like high-ranking, young, powerful CEOs of companies that have gotten their 401ks stolen because they just social engineer their way into these security protocols. They bypass them, and unfortunately, they've stolen a lot of money from these people.
For you gentlemen, I have 2 questions for you gentlemen. Regarding about elder abuse and the money, things like that and everything, how much of that do you get from family members that are scamming their parents, scamming their grandparents? Because once in a while, there'll be something that happens here where the grandparent doesn't call the administration because they're afraid to, because they've been threatened, things like that. A few years ago, one of my friends on the north side, her neighbor's son was breaking in the window constantly and coming in, got a hold of her documents and everything. Finally, she got in touch with somebody that was able to block him from anything, told the administration office. They weren't aware of it until it happened. And I know that not only by caregivers, that happens also, unfortunately, by their own family members.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And we personally as an agency don't do a lot of the like family member type thing because we're so focused on, I would say, the international footprint, more call centers, people sending those emails and phone calls. Stuff like that, we might get into those kind of cases, but really that's probably more for a case for your local police department, report it. Yeah, we just don't do a lot of those types of cases.
I can kind of speak to that we do at the bank, and all your banks should be doing this, we would call adult protective services. If we feel like someone, and it has happened in our branch several times, where we could tell that the person was frightened, was not opening up, we'd separate them from the caregiver and try to talk to them. And that's what we watched for. And then we get adult protective services involved, and then they contact the local police department. So that's another thing. If we're quizzing you about why you're taking your money, it's to protect you, not to get into your business. So we get all the time, it's none of your business.
So many things ask for your last 4 of your social. Are you secure? Can they do anything with only the last 4? Are you secure in giving that out?
Last 4, yeah, a lot of times you're to like authenticate who you are, or you have an account, they'll ask you for the last 4. That in and of itself is not that unusual. And I did want to touch upon this. If you aren't doing 2-factor authentication on your accounts, and that's might be, you know, people in this room might be going, what is this guy talking about? Make sure that on the accounts, your banking apps, any type of online account you have, Amazon, Microsoft, whatever it is, every time you log in, you should have it prompted so it sends you like a text message to actually log in. That way, if someone even does get your password or your social, or they're trying to log into your stuff, good luck, because they don't have your phone number. Or there are a lot of times there's these apps. I have like a Microsoft Authenticator app. I don't have any passwords on anything. To log into any of my accounts, you have to have my phone, and it sends me an alert to my phone saying, "Is this you like actually logging in?" I go, "Yeah, it's me." Boom. Sometimes I get alerts saying, "Are you trying to log in right now?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not trying to log in anything." Deny. Someone's trying to log into my account. Dual factor authentication. It basically just means you have to have two ways to get into your account. So just make sure you have, like, maybe it sends you a text message, an email, a phone call, or it prompts you to download an app on your phone. That way, if your stuff ever does get leaked out, there's less of a risk of them actually being able to get inside your actual account or something like that, because they have to go through a whole nother layer of security. No, facial recognition is fine. Facial recognition is extremely secure. Your fingerprint, anything where they have to have you is great.
When you call into the bank too, that's why we ask you security questions, and no longer will we take mother's maiden name, because it's out there. Anybody can find your mother's maiden name. So we ask, do a little bit more specific question, answer, and we always ask for 3 separate forms of identification on the phone before we'll give any information out. And it's just a good idea. Yeah, your double factor or dual factor is really a good idea. I had something that I was going to say too. Now I forgot.
Go ahead.
What's behind the spam alert telephone calls? I get a lot of them. It says spam alert.
It's a known spam.
That'll be like your cell phone carrier. That's like with me with Verizon. They have that spam thing, and that's to let the customers know to try and help them out. So that's your carrier trying to alert you that there's a high likelihood of this being a spam call.
Oh,
yeah.
Because I never answered that, but
Good.
I
Yeah,
never
that's
knew-
good. Yeah. Yeah.
But I never knew what was behind it. Where did they get whatever they were looking for? I mean,
Yeah. So
what are they looking for?
yeah, the companies have a way of algorithm or whatever they do. They know good numbers from bad numbers, high likely to be spam, more likely to be a normal phone call. And that's a feature that your carrier provides to you to protect you.
Good, thank you.
And anyone that knows me knows if you want to get a hold of me, you leave me a voicemail, because I ignore all of those kind of calls. And we get those warranty calls, like how many times a day? And they call from different numbers. You block one number and they call from another number. So just be careful, just be alert. Don't click on any emails that you don't know where they're coming from. Ask questions, just like these gentlemen have said. Ask questions. We're always there to help you if you have anything, and in your bank too. If you're not banking with the Bank of Hemet, all the banks have alert services where you can put alerts on your debit card. Every time your debit card is used, you get an alert. And I have that on mine, and it saved me a spam because I'd never used Uber, and I got an alert that my card was being used to do a Uber, so I was able to cancel it just like that. So access your alerts from your bank, because that's invaluable to you, that you can be alerted when something is happening. You can put balance alerts, you can put activity alerts. There's all sorts of alerts that are available to you. And don't get upset when your debit card doesn't work somewhere, because it's just saying that might be a fraudulent transaction. So please, don't get upset. It's for your protection.
It's okay. She ignores me in Rotary, too.
Hi, Tom.
Hi there, boss. Like many of us, I have a cell phone and I have a laptop. I don't do any financial things on my cell phone. I have my laptop, which is contracted to Best Buy for an ongoing virus check. So every time I turn on virus checks, it's done by Best Buy on my computer. So I never use my cell phone for any financial stuff. I use my laptop that's got the virus going on it. And you may want to be careful. If you don't have virus stuff on your cell phone, like they're saying, you're opening yourself up to a big window where your laptop or your desktop might be more secure. You can ignore me now, Linda.
Well, that's a good point, Tom. I'm glad you said that, because you want to be careful with Wi-Fi. Like if you're at Starbucks or in a hotel and you use their Wi-Fi, you don't want to use it to do any banking transactions or purchase anything, because that's an unsecure link. You want to do it from your own home where you have your own, what is it? The Wi-Fi, but there's a VF that's secure, you know, your VPN, it's secure.
I have a question. How secure is Zelle?
So Zelle is a secure platform, but there's a lot of fraud on that platform. There's a lot of fraud on it. I mean, Zelle, I send money to Zelle people all the time. Hey, we went out to lunch, it's $10. Okay, let me Zelle it to you. Here you go. But that's just a really ripe platform for fraud. Because people, just like Venmo or, hey, send me money this way, Zelle's just another mechanism of them to get you to send money.
I have a software system, and I specifically am running Zelle transactions. So any Zelle transaction that is out of your normal routine pattern, you know, whatever, it kicks out alerts into my software daily, and then I contact the account officer. Then the account officer has a conversation with you, like, who are you Zelling money to? And sometimes why are you sending them money? But a lot of fraud. There's so much fraud in Zelle transactions.
I get calls from her all the time.
I Zelle all the time.
Not to say if you go to a service and they're saying, hey, you can Zelle me the money, don't be like, no, I'm not going to Zelle you the money. That's fraud. Yeah. But just be aware. And
make sure it's somebody you know.
Yes.
That's the big thing. Make sure it's somebody you know. It's not a scammer that just called.
Yeah, I mean, generally, if you're online, whether you're on your phone or gentlemen here talking about your desktop, your laptop, like my phone has an antivirus software. I have all my authenticator apps on it. You know, good luck logging into my stuff. I don't even have passwords. You have to have my physical device to get into anything. So I encourage you all to do the same. That way it minimizes any risk if you guys ever have, you know, compromised accounts. Brandon did want to touch upon real quick, if anybody's in the recent dating scene, maybe just how to reverse search an image, and you might be surprised of what you might see. You're talking to someone online, and you actually search the image, and all of a sudden you realize, hey, this guy isn't who he says he is. So Brandon can get into that.
Yeah, so a lot of the elder romance scams we're seeing are online dating websites. Sure. Online dating websites, and you know, there's a bunch of big ones, there's smaller ones. No matter which one you go for, you got to be a little bit careful on every single one. To include, you know, the religious ones, the Christian mingles, all those ones that you think, hey, these are the Christians, they're people like me, I can trust them. Unfortunately, bad guys are on those ones too. So what we're seeing is, say if I were a female on a dating website, I meet a male and I ask for a picture. And the stories we've been seeing, and this is another red flag, I don't know if we covered it in the PowerPoint, but a lot of the times these people are overseas, right? So you can't meet them in person. That's a big red flag right there. If you can't meet this person and it's been prolonged amount of time, months, maybe a year, and they always have an excuse of why they can't actually meet, that's strange, that's odd, and it shouldn't happen. And what we're seeing is if they can't meet in person, there's usually a photo request. Hey, I want to make sure you're a real person. Can you send me a picture of you at work? Because you're working on an oil rig overseas, or you're working in an offshore or whatever. So they'll send a picture, they'll get it, and you know, it'll look pretty normal. I'll have a guy in a work uniform, maybe on a boat. Maybe there's an ocean behind him. If his story is I'm on a boat, I'm with whatever company, and I work in the middle of nowhere. And they trust that. And then we find out later that they've been scammed out of money, and through our investigation, one of the first things we ask for is, have you ever met this person? The answer is 99% of the time, no. And have you ever received a picture of this person? So they'll share their pictures, and we'll look at it, and you know, just because of our job and our training, we can see when a photo's been doctored or altered or photoshopped. And a lot of these ones are very obvious photoshops. I mentioned the oil rig one because that's a popular scam right now that guys are using. Hey, I work on this boat and I'm not gonna be home for 9 months, but we have a lot in common, so let's continue to talk. And also, I had this unexpected fee come up and I need you to send me $2,000, you know? And it happens a lot. So they'll get a picture of them and they'll be on a boat. And they'll even have a name tag on. But when we look at that picture, we can see that they used a computer program and typed a first name on a name tag because it's fuzzy, it looks weird, the lines are blurred a little bit. So there's tools online, there's a Google reverse image search that you can actually upload a photo to, and it will scan the internet to see if this photo pops up on any other social media websites or there's some websites dedicated to scams to see if this has been used in another scam. And it's real easy to do. There's, like you can Google it, you just go on google.com and you can put reverse image search, and it'll have you upload that photo, and it will scan, and it will tell you, hey, this photo has been found on 1,800 websites across the internet, So they you kind of know right there. So, yeah, so it's popular, it happens a lot.
So what is the safest way to pay your personal bills? Is it through a personal check or online, or what's the best way to pay your personal bills?
Yeah, personally, I pay pretty much 99% of my bills online. When I have to use a check, I have to scour my house for my checkbook just because I really don't use it very often. I feel pretty secure paying my personal bills online because of the things that Mike talked about. To log into my bank account, I have to use my username and password, and then it sends me a text message with a specific code that I have to that I have to input somewhere else, and then that. So personally, me speaking, I have no problem online bill pay. You guys may have.
No, that's what we recommend too. Checks are, the biggest fraud right now is with checks that have been stolen and the account number is being reproduced, and then you get checks coming out of your account that's not yours. So use your bank's online banking service, and if you're paying one that you can't do online, go to their website directly with your account that you have set up. So that's the safest way.
Do you prefer that you pay them from your bank account rather than letting the utility companies and all that draw it out automatic of your account?
I have several that are automatic. City of Banning takes mine automatically, and I've had no problem with it because you're setting it up yourself. You're going directly to their website and setting it up that you know is a valid account. It's your account that you're setting up, so it's fine. And we're going to stop right now, I think, because we have someone from the Banning Police
I
Department.
do have somebody from the Banning Police Department, and but I would like to thank gentlemen. Oh my gosh, this was so informative. Thank you so much.
Well,
Linda, thank you.
Anytime you have any questions, feel free, whether you bank with me or not, to come by and run it by me at the Bank of Hemet over here. My cards are on the back table, and there's a lot of good resources in that handout that I handed to you, too. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. So right now, before I have the police department come up, I'm going to have Mark Schleiden. He's our director of operations, and he's going to give us a little information about, normally Mike Romero is here, but he wasn't able to come today. So we've got the best thing next.
Hello, everyone. Couple of things. I met with Mike earlier and went over a couple of things on his list that have come up recently. First and foremost, right now, we're having a lot of dogs off leash throughout the property, and it's creating a problem throughout. So contact Mike or Gate 1, Gate 2, Gate 5 as well, and just give them a heads up that there's dogs off leash. Dogs must be on leash at all times. Open garage doors. I opened a report about 40 minutes ago, and I had 11 reports last night of open garage doors. They were after dark. Calls were made, voicemails left. So there are a number of homes that continue to leave the garage doors open after dark. So make sure that we are securing that. On the executive golf course, we've got another intrusion through the chain link fence. We are going to receive proposals tomorrow for a 1/2-inch wrought iron. We're looking at approximately 40 yards of wrought iron fence. That will go to the board. We'll see what the cost is and go from there. Also, we've installed stop signs and limit lines, Bradley, Myrtle Beach, Birdie, Sunningdale, and Riviera and Melhorn. We're looking at adding a stop sign on Laurel Canyon and Pine Valley as well. Last but not least, the RV lot. We had an issue a week ago with the individual who jumped the fence, which was seen on camera. Entered, we sent PD down as well as the patrol. Returned later with bolt cutters, cut through the fence. There was 12 rigs that were affected by the intrusion. No theft, but there was some damage occurred to the rigs themselves. So we're watching after that, and cameras. Currently, we are working with a software program to get all 8 cameras up at the RV lot and running. We're currently sitting at 3 right now. That is an issue, but it's a software issue pertaining to reading off the cameras. So we're working with a Valley Alarm, trying to get that corrected as soon as possible. And that's all I've got on my list. Any questions for myself? Yes. There was one report last night.
So for your information, they probably forgot about it.
They have been asked to enter with lights. Yes, so that's what we've asked for. Yep. Any other questions? Y'all have a great, yes, Linda. It's hole number 5 on the executive golf course. So it's been ongoing and ongoing, so we're gonna look at reinforcing that with the wrought iron. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you need to go in the microphone because they can't hear you on TV.
How often do they clear the people out of the tunnel on between, where 4 comes down? There's a
Banning PD will address that
Okay,
shortly.
so Banning PD is here, and she's going to address that. Mark doesn't have actually all the answers to that. No. But Banning PD is here. If you have any direct questions for Mark with our security, that's what we want. I have Officer Vaca here that is going to answer your other questions. Nope? Okay.
Bring her up.
So I would like to introduce Officer Vaca. She is our homeless liaison officer. So I'm going to let her give you some information.
Hello, good afternoon. So yes, I'm the homeless liaison officer for the city. So I deal with the transients every day. It's what I do all day long, 10 hours a day. So right now, I'm here 4 days a week during the day. Either 6 to 4 or 7 to 5, depending on what I have going on. During that time, I'm contacting the homeless throughout the city, in the whole city of Banning. And my job really is to try and offer them resources, get them connected to different county services or, for a lot of them, drug rehab. A lot of them need mental health services. So I try to get them connected to all those things and kind of try to help on the foundation of the issues there, because that's kind of where we start. A lot of them commit crime, a lot of them don't commit crime, but it's usually as a result of either a mental health issue or a drug problem that they're doing these things. So I'm trying to assist with all of that. Some want the help, most don't want the help. I still offer the help every time I contact them. And then we go from there. Of course, if they're committing a crime, I arrest them for the crime, do whatever I need to do in that sense. But my mission, my purpose is to try and offer them services and help them if I can. 1 to 2 times a week, I have a mental health clinician from Riverside County that rides in the car with me. So she goes on all the calls with me, so she's even more of an asset for us as far as the mental health goes, and she can also connect them. She has a lot of access to different county services that I may not necessarily have access to, so she helps out a lot with that. So she's a great asset as well. She's with me Tuesday, Wednesday this week. I've been working on compiling a homeless list for the city of Banning, so I've been out trying to contact every single one. It's very difficult because I leave one area, come back, there's 3 more. So, but I'm at approximately 135 right now for the city, which we had actually had numbers projected much less, so that was kind of a surprise. The village is full right now on San Gregorio and Ramsey. Their 90-day program is almost up, so we're trying to figure out what the next step is right now, and then some of them may get allotted more time depending on what they have going on. A lot of them are working towards things. A lot of them that were placed in there have gotten jobs, a few of them have gone into housing, so I mean it is helping some people. So for those that are making progress, they'll probably be given more time so that they can continue to try and get on their feet. The other ones that haven't made any progress at all, of course, will be asked to leave, and then we'll open up spots for people on the streets that are waiting to get in who may or may not make progress if they were given the opportunity. So that's where we're at with that. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, I know you guys mentioned the encampments along the tracks.
Yes.
So I know that's a big one. Yes. So we were waiting on Union Pacific, and we just met with them last week. Yes. And within the next couple weeks, they're giving us 4 days that's going to be funded by Union Pacific to clean out that whole area. Yes. So that's going to be happening within the next few weeks. That's a definite for the next few. We don't have a date yet, but sometime within the next few weeks, they're going to allot us 4 days, and we'll be spending the 4 days out there cleaning everything out of there.
Wait. Please remember you need the microphone.
Does that mean that the homeless encampment is no longer there, or are they being moved out, or what is it?
So we're going to go it'll be the same process that happened over on San Gregorio. So we will go and we will offer them services to begin with, offer them placement into a shelter or housing or some sort of placement. It will be offered to them, and we will offer it to them several times before we just say that's it, that's all. So I will go a few days before the kick-out date, and I will try and get everybody that wants help and placed into like I said, a shelter or some sort of housing situation as a part of their displacement. Of course, like what happened in San Gregorio, if they refuse, which I can't make them, then they will be told, well, you have to leave regardless. If the day comes for us to clean out that area and they are still there and they refuse to leave, they will be arrested for trespassing and or various other things that day, and they'll be booked into jail. After we clean out that area, it's going to remain posted for trespassing. So we will go through there daily and just make sure, try to prevent them from resetting up, because that does happen. We've been able to keep them off of the other side of San Gregorio for now, but they've kind of scattered throughout the city. Right. So I do that, like I said, every day throughout the week. I mean, myself, and the cadet that helps out with me, we probably ourselves, and I mean ourselves, we're picking up trash and mattresses and all of these things. We're cleaning out 10 plus encampments, smaller encampments a week when we move people along. I think our cadet has collected in the past 3 weeks over 150 shopping carts. Yeah, on his own. So we are trying. We are. With as much manpower as we have, we are trying. You know, they do have a lot of protections and rights under the law that we have to follow as well, and just kind of be careful that we're not violating anybody's rights. So, but we try as best we can to help them out in any way, and then if they refuse and we don't have any other option, then it leads to them in jail.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
Right here?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What happens to the people that have had 90 days and then they're kicked out? Where do they go? Are they homeless again, or in Banning, or do they go other places, or are they in Banning permanently homeless?
It's going to be kind of, in every situation, it's kind of the same. Before we kick them out, we're going to offer them assistance or services. It'll be placement into a shelter somewhere that would be outside of Banning, because we don't have any other shelter in Banning. So we have shelters in Riverside, in the Coachella Valley, in different areas. We have access to shelters. So we'd offer them a spot at one of those shelters. If they decline and they refuse that, then they would just be homeless in Banning again. So then they would go somewhere else. And, you know, what we're trying to do is you move them along enough, eventually, which I have seen, they get tired of it, and then they find somewhere else to go where they're not going to be bothered.
Okay.
And
I have another question. I asked it last month, but I was told to ask it this month because you probably could answer it. How do you choose the homeless people that you know are really going to benefit from the program for these 90 days? How do you know that they, well, I guess you don't, well, okay. That they'll take the services, or that maybe they're just there for, you know, the 90 days to clean up, and then they just go back to being homeless. Do you understand my question?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. So I assist with housing in the village. There is a civilian site coordinator that actually makes those final decisions, but he does run everybody through me. So my point in that is checking their records, make sure they're not on any current criminal issues, or not on probation or parole. They don't have any outstanding warrants or anything like that. Once they get cleared through me, they go to him. He has a meeting with them, and he has an application or a series of questions that he goes through with them, and that helps him determine if they'll be a fit or not. Can we guarantee that? No, absolutely not. We have probably about half of the people that were moved in there originally who have done nothing at all, and just use the spot as basically a roof over their head for 90 days, which, I mean, we gave that to them. But now, knowing that they didn't make any improvements or any changes, they're going to be the ones that are going to be asked to leave.
Several years ago, we addressed the issue of those few people that actually want to leave the camp and will take a job. Perhaps it's something that they used to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we helped with clothing, because even if they were given a job, they didn't have 2 shirts to go to work, or glasses to read when they got there, or shoes to put on their feet to do manual work.
Right.
How do we address that in our community? Are we asking for any kind of help for clothing for people, or is there any sort of program that way?
Well, there are the foundations that are already set up within the community, Help Incorporated, Faith in Action. Those places take donations. So I know I was just at Help this morning. They printed out because we were going over the homeless list, they printed out their homeless list for me, and I think it was at 290. Now that's since their inception, which it's been many, many years now. So a lot of those transients are not here anymore. But in the time that they've been open, that's how many people that they've assisted. So they have a really good setup there, and while I was there, a lot of the local transients that I deal with daily, I saw come in and get food and get clothes. They have a little closet set up for them to come and get some clothes and stuff, so they did come get clothes before they left. And I think they're allowed to go in once a week or to get stuff, yeah. So if you were interested in donating, I would advise that those would be the best options to explore first. I wouldn't advise for you personally to take your belongings or anything you wanted to donate yourself to give to any transients because they're very unpredictable. So finding somewhere to donate them would be the best option there. You're welcome.
My question is that I had heard and spoken to people that has been given information. How much or how many of these homeless people are being bussed in from other areas?
So they're not being bussed in from other areas. What's happening is people that are being taken and booked into the jail here in Banning. This is not all of it, but this is a part of it. People that are being booked into the jail here in Banning, well, when it's time for their release, they're not supposed to be released into Banning unless they're from Banning. However, if they tell the sheriff's department that they don't want to go wherever it is they're from because maybe they've talked to people while they were in jail and have been told, hey, you know, Banning's fun or cool or whatever. So, yeah, right. The draw to Banning is all of the services. We have social services, we have the DMV, we have all of these different things here, the free phones, all of these things here. It's all in one area for them, one city. They don't have to go to all these different places. So that's kind of one of our big draws. But anyway, when they hear that and they tell the jail, I don't want to go back to Hemet where I'm from, I want to stay here in Banning, the jail can't force them. You know, just like I can't force anybody. That's kidnapping essentially. If you force them to go somewhere they don't want to go. So that's what I was talking about. Their rights and we can't violate that. So if they tell the jail, yeah, I'm from Hemet, but I want to stay in Banning, they don't have any other choice. They have to let them go here.
I'm interested in this question. Are you encountering any children in this situation?
Luckily, no. I think in the time I've been doing this, about 6 months now, I've encountered 1 or 2 children, and they weren't actually on the streets. They were living in motorhomes, but they were in school in the area. They ended up getting into housing, both of them, both situations. I was able to connect them with housing, and they were able to get into housing. But when I contacted them originally, they were living in motorhomes. I have not contacted any children actually living in the streets.
Thank you.
Okay, 2 more questions.
Yes. Is there anything that could be done as far or has been done about some of the quote homeless that evidently aren't homeless that have been working 22nd Street, and occasionally you'd see one up at Sunset, but off 22nd Street for years? I mean, I've seen cutting off of that exit 1 or 2 people that have been there for years, and at one time I understand they were followed and they had a home they were living in on Williams, and this has gone on for years. And people, of course, they're trying to get, as you come off the freeway, to they're homeless, so they need food, and people will give them money, and it's really sad when there's other ways of helping people that really need the help.
Right. So I actually know who you're referring to. And they weren't actually living in a home on Williams. They were kind of sleeping in the back area there. But I know what you're talking about. They're not there anymore. They are actually living on the streets now. They were set up right there near the on-ramp, and then with Caltrans, we cleared them out of there a couple weeks ago. Yeah, the ones that you're talking about, I know who you're talking about. Anytime you see anybody panhandling in the city, of course it's illegal in the city of Banning to panhandle. So you guys can and should always call when you see them. We'll come out. Anytime I see them, I stop them, talk to them. If they have anything on them, I take it. Whatever I need to do. So you guys should always call. Unfortunately, we can't always catch them. You know, sometimes we get calls and by the time we get there, they're gone, but you should still always call to report it. We try to deter, but you know, with so many people giving them, it's such a draw, you know, because for as many people that tell them no, they have just as many people that give. So if they were getting nothing, they wouldn't go back.
Okay. You did an awesome job. Thank you so much. You really gave us some information that we're unaware of. So it was great about what's going on back here.
Yes.
I know Lieutenant Avila said you're going to do a great job. You sure did.
Thank you. If you guys have any other questions, I can leave my contact information. My email's at the bottom. Any question you have at all, maybe you didn't want to ask in this forum or you think of it later, you can go ahead and shoot me an email and I will answer your question as best I can. Okay, thank you.
Okay, everyone, I hope everyone enjoyed the presentations today. And just to let you know, our next presentation is going to, well, we have our Community Awareness Steering Committee meeting on November 11th from 1 to 2:30 in the bus room. And then we have our next presentation on 11/21 from 1 to 3:30. It'll be here in the main ballroom. And I'm going to have Veterans Administration. There's a lot of things that people probably don't know that they can qualify for. And she's going to come here and tell us exactly things that you need to know, whether it's a headstone, whether it's burial services, whether you can qualify for additional services. So it'll be very informative. So I want to thank everybody for showing up today. I appreciate you coming out and making this a great program. Thank you so much.